The thing with wealth is that it is one of the most powerful tools that you can wield, but like any tool, you have to treat it with both the respect it deserves and utilize it correctly. If you fail to do that, then you'll just become another statistic to the curse of wealth. Doesn't matter if you were born to wealth, have it, or if you just have an ambition to obtain it. For the unique thing behind wealth is that it might be cyclical, but it's not a circle. It's a spiral. A spiral that begins with either ambition, avarice, or just the simple desire at a better life. And if you ever wanted to study and understand this spiral, the easiest possible way is to actually imagine a grandfather as he wakes up one day shivering straight to the bone. He'll make a vow that none of his kin shall ever know the pain of the hunger or the cold, and so, true to his word, he'll go out knocking door to door in search of any old job that he can find. The first of which happens to be an old tree as it leans precariously over the old butcher's door. So with an axe in his hand, the grandfather hacks and he chops until that great mighty oak falls. But with it, so too did the grandfather. And as he looks upon his callous torn hands, he can't help but cry. This isn't sustainable, he says. He needs the right tool for the job. Now armed with a two-stroke saw, the grandfather felled more trees. What once took him all day long, now scarcely took him an hour. But few men can fly by night forever, and the grandfather was no exception. The lawman would catch up and tell him, "For every tree you fell, you have to plant two more." Having taken one step forward and two steps back, the grandfather, he was beaten, but he wasn't defeated. He would drive all the way up north in search of any land that his meager budget could buy. The unfortunate reality is that the only one within his budget happened to have been overgrown and filled with trees. Now, most men would give up at this point. But not the grandfather. No, he hatched up a wicked plan, for he was determined. He would fell those trees, he would clear this land, and he would plant two more trees behind each and every single day. So over the years, he ended up having a functioning tree farm. Until one fateful day, he put his hand to his chest, and the dark would encompass his eyes. And on that day, the father would inherit the farm. He walked through the fields with tears in his eyes, for this was the grandfather's legacy that he had left for the father's own sake. But he had scarcely saw him, and with reverence in his heart, the father made a vow. He would maintain what the grandfather had built, but he would make time for his son. With the way the farm currently was, this was impossible without hiring helping hands. The sad truth is that few men are a savant, and the father would have to spend a ton of time at the farm. With each new employee trained, the father had to work less and less hard. He only had to maintain versus to break his back. He made sure that he had time for his son's birthdays, his vacations, and took him fishing every single weekend. If there happened to have been a toy that his son desired, he would provide. Where the grandfather would exchange his time for wealth, the father realized that he needed to change wealth for time. It's just a shame that time stops for no man. And as a farmer must farm, a reaper must reap. And so the son would inherit a farm that he believed ran like a well-oiled machine. It's just a shame that he never saw that it was his father who was the one who was oiling the machines. He never saw how his grandfather broke his back trying to build it. He only saw how his father had time for him, and time to go fishing and take vacations. The son thought money was endless. His father didn't have to work hard. Why should he? This attitude bled down through the business, and the employees saw that the boss didn't care, so why should they? Slowly but surely, the son would lose the farm. Even with that, the son was still in denial. He still took his vacations, he still bought any toy that his heart desired, and he still went fishing. Until the inevitable day that he lost it all, forced to go to bed, cold and hungry. If you really want wealth, or at least want to keep it, then you need to understand and study this spiral. The mentality of the grandfather, the father, and the son have been observed since the beginning of time, and they will be observed at our end. Knowing where and who you are on this spiral is the key to escape it. For it's not just the grandfather who builds wealth and the father who maintains it. Sometimes the son is the one who gets lucky. We see this time and time again with athletes who make millions of dollars one year, only to go bankrupt the next. At first we all wonder, why? How is this possible? But when you understand the curse of wealth, it's hard to blame them. From our youth, propaganda has been bled deep into our mind that if you ever become wealthy, you have to have the flashy cars, the mansions, and the endless free time. The news, the fake gurus, and the whole world will take advantage of your ignorance of this cycle because they understand that if you have the mentality of the son, you might get rich, but you will never have a grandson. So be honest with yourself, and I mean truly honest with yourself as to who you actually are. For I would love to sit here and tell you that I was the grandfather who broke his back trying to obtain wealth. Yet, that would be a half-truth and a whole lie. The truth is, I was the son. The son who believed himself to be the grandfather. I never cared how hard my forefathers worked before me. Work was the clouds, and the video games and the vacations were the silver linings. I was living like a dopamine-starved animal, only seeking hedonistic pleasures. I thought to myself, you can take breaks here and there. Who cares if your breaks take longer than your actual work? I kept saying, you got tomorrow, but tomorrow would never come. But even if it did, my brain would only calculate how hard I need to work to get to my next toy. Yet I still believed I never got the wealth I believed I deserved. I blamed the whole world and every scapegoat that I could find. The whole world was against me, that's what I told my bitter heart. But the cold, hard truth is that it was my failure to stop being the son and learn from the grandfather and the father. It's a harsh lesson to be sure, and one I failed to learn until I went to bed in a tent during an icy cold Canadian winter. It was only then that I truly understood I was never the grandfather. I was the son. And I am not telling you this farming for pity. I'm telling you this as a word of caution. Take a lesson from my failure and stop and reflect before it is too late. Ask yourself who you are, not who you believe you are, but who you actually are. If you are the grandfather, hopefully you will make time for your son. If you are the father, hopefully you will teach your son what it means to maintain and grow. But if you happen to be the son like me, then hopefully you will have learned and reflected before it is too late. Just remember that the son might be a boy, but a boy can become a man who swears that none of his kin shall ever know the pain of the cold, nor the pains of hunger. Wealth is a tool, and like any tools, it can destroy or it can create. If you treat wealth as the tool that it is, and give it both the respect it deserves and utilize it correctly, you can break this curse of wealth and produce generational wealth. It is only through that the son can become a father himself. But if you fail to do this, there will never be a grandson. I would personally like to thank each and every one of you for subscribing because we have just passed the hardest threshold on YouTube, which happens to be the first 1,000 subscribers. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you to each and every one of you. And if you enjoyed this video, check out the video shown on screen and subscribe for more.